Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I want to show you something that is quite common and it's very popular with many companies and industries. Today I'll be showing you how to populate a second drop-down list based off of the selection of the first drop-down list. You have so many examples of these kind of scenarios. For example, the example I'm going to give today is going to be a phone. So you have many phone brands like Samsung, you have iPhones, you have Technos, Motorola, and all of that, etc. So if you select one of the brands, let's say select iPhones brand, and then the second drop down is going to be the type of iPhones, so the category of iPhones. If you select Samsung, it's gonna the second drop down will show you Samsung um, phones, the models, Samsung models, Um, so that's what I want to show you. It's very common that it's to be used in many companies. The second thing I'm going to show you here is I want to do this using Ajax jQuery. So your page will not refresh. So when you select the first drop down list, it will not refresh your page. If you want to see how this is happening, you're going to look at this refresh button right here. When you select, it shouldn't refresh the page. It should just dynamically automatically populate the second drop down list, which will show the list of phones that is selected for the particular phone or phone brand: iPhone, Samsung, Motorola, Techno, all of that kind of things. So let me just give you a demo what is happening here. So I'm just going to refresh this page for the first time. Let's pretend that this is the let's pretend that it's loading for the first time, and then you're going to see. Okay, so it loads for the first time. All I have here is mobile brand, which is going to be the list of phone brands: iPhone, Samsung, and all of that. So you could see it populates it. All right, you have iPhone, Samsung, Techno, and Motorola. Now I want to select one of these brands here, and it should show me the list of phones that is related to that brand. So I'll select Samsung. You see how this phone appears, like mobile phones appears, second drop down list appears, and it populates only Samsung brands. See, Samsung brands. Same thing's going to happen. Watch how this doesn't refresh. This doesn't refresh. The page doesn't refresh because I'm using Ajax here. I'm going to teach you that as well. So let's go again and select, let's say I select Techno. You see that it changes to all Techno phones. Now it's Spark 7, Camon 17, Camon 17 Premier, Phantom X. All these are Techno phones. And same thing if I change to iPhone, you're going to see that it shows iPhone X, iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone 12 Pro Max, iPhone 8 X Plus. These are, just dynamically loading from Ajax, Jquery Ajax. And this is how I'm going to show you how you can do this. So let's demonstrate this again. First time you come to the page, you have only one drop-down list showing. When you select, then it shows the second drop-down list populated with the values of the first drop-down. Based on the value of the first drop-down list, it populates the second drop-down list. Let me show you how to do this in JavaScript, jQuery Ajax using MVC, and then I'm gonna show you. All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and do this, and let's get started. All right, so guys, I'm back into Visual Studio. I have created an MVC project in ASP.NET, and it's just a basic MVC project. You see it has the home controller index here. In the index, all I did was just um, set up the jQuery CDN. I included the jQuery CDN. You can get the jQuery CDN on Google. Just type jQuery CDN, put it in here. I just put a div here, and then I put a script tag here. And I also added the model here. All right. So with this model, you can see I just created a model. This just created this model. These are the models that we're going to use. I created a phone class and brand class. and then I created the select brand list select drop down. Okay, so that's that. Now let's pretend that we have the data already set up. Like you're going to have the data coming from the database, or you're going to have the data already given to you from a data list somewhere, or from already set up. And that is what I've just done already, so we don't have to worry about setting up the data already. So you could see here I already have like I already have get mobile brands and get mobile phones already set up here, so we don't waste too much of time. Like I told you, I created class for brands, I created a class for phones. So the class for phones just have the phone ID, brand ID, phone name, and then the brand has just a brand ID and a brand names. And then these classes here, this method here will return a list of mobile brands, and this is what it is, just the mobile brands, just a list of it. I just hard coded it right here. The first one is the ID with iPhone, uh, ID1. Second one is ID2 with Samsung. Third one is ID3 with Techno. Fourth one is 4 with Motorola. Now I have all of that. I also did get mobile phones, so this will just return the mobile phones, right? So for all the IDs, one, you could see ID1, you could see right here, all these are IDs for mobile brand ID1. These are iPhone brands, and mobile brand 2, these are, you could see these are Samsung brands, and then mobile brand 3, brand ID3, these are Techno, and then the last one is brand 4, these are Motorola brands, and it will return it once I pass the ID here. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to set up the first drop down list, so that we should be able to, based on the first drop down list, we should be able to populate the second drop down list. So let's set up the first drop down list. We just want to make sure that the first drop down list is populating at least, and then we could go ahead and and um, worry about populating the second drop down list using Ajax, Jquery Ajax. To do that, we need to call the first drop down list is the one that has the brands, like shows the brand, phone brands, iPhone, Samsung, Motorola, and all of that. To do that, we have to make sure that we are calling this get mobile brands in the index method, just to call it and load it the first time. So I'm going to do that right now, and all right, let's get started. To do that, I want to create the view, the phone view view model here, this one. So I'll have to create a phone view model. So let's do that. Phone view model, it's already there. I'm just gonna call it VM equal to new. All right, that's that. Let's pass the VM here before we forget. Sometimes you can easily forget this, right? All right, so we'll pass the VM right there. Now let's populate the select list item. So remember in this place, like we have like a select list item inside here. This is the guy that the drop down will use to populate the list. Okay, so it's like a select list item. We use that a lot for drop down list. So let's populate the select list item real quickly. So that's gonna be VM dot, one of them here is the brand list is select list item. So you see select this item. See when you hover over it, select this item. So that's the one. And then we want to call this method here, this list method, get brands, right? That's what I want to call. Just want to call this guy. Well, first of all, we need to initialize the select list item. Otherwise, it's gonna break. Don't forget to do that. It's gonna break if not. So we'll initialize that first, and then I want to get. Let's do it for each. For each of these items here on this guy right here. Okay, that's a method, so make sure you close it like that. For each of those items, I want to create I want to create like each of them I want to create a brand and then assign it to the value of the select list item, value and text of the select list item. So we're going to do a var brand equals to new select list item. So remember, the select list item that we have in our model is a list of select list item. So we're going to have a new select list item, and we'll be adding it into the brand list, which is already up there. So we do select list item, right? And okay, so in here the value is going to be item dot brand ID dot to string. So this is a string, so you have to make it like to string, and then the second one is the text. These are the ones that we just need to populate, right? Will be equals to item dot brand name. Okay, that's it. And then all we need to do is just to add it here. All we need to do is just add it to this list. That's it. So just inside of the for each, you add it inside of the for each dot brand list dot add, and then we'll add our brand, which is this one we just did right now, and just semicolon, and that's it. We're done. Brand populate this brand list, which is a select select list item, and then we now need to move to our HTML, our view, and start coding the view. So for right here, I just want to give it like the header, like the header, like something like just something that would show, like, you know, we have just give a history. I think I called it the phone factory, just, you know, just to give it something that has like a name, phone factory. All right, and I want to put like a break HR tag, just a line there. Just format this guy a little bit better. All right, so that's that. And in here, let us start building this guy. So the first thing we're gonna do is to make a div, and this div is going to have a form group class. Form group. By the way, this is like, we are using Bootstrap here, right? So it's already within the Bootstrap. The next thing we're going to do is just to add a label. So most of these things I've already typed, so just to save your time and save time for everybody. So this is like just a label at html.label4. So this is Razor syntax. If you don't know what Razor syntax is, just Googling. Razor syntax helps you to write like kind of like C# code in the view, but it has like HTML helpers. It's like, this is like the @ symbol. The HTML dot label for is like HTML helper that helps you generate elements, you know. So this is just the label 4, and then this is like the lambda expression. It gives you all of this, you know, nice stuff. And then now let's add the drop down list. For the drop down list, I'm going to explain what I did, just, you know, just so you know. I kind of type it out, so I'm going to explain what I did. So now this is drop down list. The drop down list 4 is the same thing as the lambda expression, is kind of the same thing as the first one above. Then the next thing the next parameter that comes in is a select list. The select list is where we pass in our model.brand list. Remember, we had this model.brand list that we populated here. See, we populated this brand, and then we gave it a value and a text. The value is ID, the text is the brand name, and then we added it to our list view model.brandlist.add. We added this brand here into this list. So now this brand list has every list that is going to be looped. The loop iterated on the loop here from when we did get mobile brands. Okay, so we already have it here stored here, and this is going to have it there. And then we just tell it that the first thing here is the value, and then the text that should be displayed is a text, which is the kind of the phone name. And then the next thing that comes is the optional value. You know how you have like optional values, please select phone brand. I just did select phone brand. The next thing that comes is the HTML attributes. If you want to put like a class or an ID, give an ID to this element, and that is what you do right there. Okay, just by doing this, I think the first drop down list should be good enough to populate. Let's run the code and see if it populates correctly, and then if it does, we're going to come back and we'll come back and start writing the second drop down list to make sure that we start working on second drop down list. That's next. All right, let's let it build. And okay, it's building. Okay, come on. All right, so the first drop down list is there. We have the phone factory, that already there, the mobile brand, and the drop down list is select phone brand. If you select the phone brand, you see now we have our phone brands populated as iPhone, Samsung, Techno, Motorola. This is what we want to see, and this is exactly what we want to see. So the next thing we're going to do is to add the second drop down list. So let's go ahead and add the second drop down list. First of all, I want to just kind of close this guy, just so when we come in again, we're just running like we just run it like afresh. All right, so the next thing now is to add the second drop down list. It's kind of similar, but this time around I'm not going to use the drop down list for. I'm going to use like a select element, right? Because this time around it's going to be dynamically populated. So let's do the same thing. It's going to be the same form, a div with a form group, label for, and then the drop down list for here is not going to be drop down list for. Again, I've actually typed that out, and let's just see what it is. So I'm going to put just a break tag here just to make sure we have a little bit of space in between there. Alright, so this is the same thing as you could see from the first label. Here is the same thing, second label is the same thing, mobile phone, but the select list, like the drop down list, I'm just using a select. Okay, same class is form control as well, same class I gave here, same class that is here, you know, form control. I gave it an ID, I just gave it a name and all, and then I gave the div a name because what I'm trying to implement is once we're done, this div, the whole of this div will be hidden only when we successfully select the first drop down list and get the second drop down list values. That is the only time that I'm going to populate that. So, but for right now, I'm just going to show you that it is displaying without no values. Okay, so right now it's just going to display without no values, but let's just see that in action. You know, it's nice to actually show things with actions and make sure people are actually following along and seeing how things are going. Okay, so now the second one is showing. Okay, but right now if you select, there's nothing is happening. There's nothing here because we've not programmed that to happen. So let's go back and actually program this to happen the way it should. All right. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to hide the second drop down list because nothing is happening right there, right? So let's do that in a document. So this is now Jquery. Let's go to Jquery in the document ready function. Document ready function, we should be hiding that. Alright, so in the document ready function, what we're doing is we're hiding this div, this first div. So it's going to hide right now, and you should not be seeing it anymore. Okay. just to show you. Okay, so now you see that it's not showing anymore because I just hit it. Okay. All right, so the second thing we're going to do now is to set up the method that will get the phones, like when you give the first drop down list. When you select this first drop down list, you're going to have an ID, and then that ID, we're going to have all the phones that are related to the ID. So we need to go to the controller and set up that method, and that method, we're just going to call it so right here, okay, let's just put it right here. Let's just call this, it's going to be a public, oh hold on, sorry, oh, what am I typing, sorry. All right, so I want to stop that so we know we're writing. So it's going to be public action results, and we're going to do get mobile phones by brand ID, and that is going to take an integer value of brand ID, which is going to be passed through by Jquery Ajax. Okay, I'm just going to format this a little bit better. Okay. All right. The first thing we're going to do is to get the phones where the ID is equals to the brand ID that is being passed in. So where the brand ID is equals to the brand ID that is being passed in. Right, so something like that. So we're doing the get phones now. So we're doing this get phones, which is this guy here. So whenever we pass the brand ID number 1, it's going to get all these ones with brand ID number 1 right here. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We pass that where clause, and then it's going to get all the brand IDs with brand ID number 1, and then we're going to do to list. The next thing is just to return a JSON results, and that will be able to give us back the results in JavaScript when we ask for those results. So this is like we are return JSON new data equals to phones. So the data now is going to be the phones, and then allow get for JSON behavior, and that's it. That's it for this guy. This will return this. So now we need to go back to the HTML and start programming, actually in JavaScript, and start programming how to get this data. A very important thing to do is to know that what we're going to do is we're going to tap into the onChange event of the first drop-down list. So when the first drop-down list changes, we want to get the ID from that first drop-down list, and the function for the onChange event is simply tap the ID, and then do dot change, and then write a function, and then that's it. And then you can now do whatever you want to do from there. So something like that, right? So you have like, this is the ID for the first drop down list right here. That's what I gave it, right? This is the ID, right? The ID is mobile brand dot change, and then now we're going to do on the function here, we're going to do something. The first thing that we're going to do, we want to get the selected value of this drop down list, of the first drop down list, which is still the same thing as using this dot value, because we are in this function. So we just do this dot value, so we get the selected value with that. And once we do that, the next thing we are going to do now is the Ajax. Okay, so we're going to write an Ajax function to get things going, and to do that, just do the $.Ajax. It's already there, right? And you do opening, closing in there, and then that this on its own is already the Ajax function in there. Now inside here, now we need to define some parameters and all of that. The first thing we're going to do is to tell it the type. In this case, the type is a post. Make sure you do like that. The reason why I'm saying it's a post is because in the home controller, the function that we are going to call in, actually we need to decorate this a post, right? HTTP post. Decorate this with a post like that. Okay, so this is decorated as a post. So the in JavaScript that is calling this, it has to be decorated as a post as well. All right, and then there are other parameters that are here. You also have to pass it the data and all of that, which I'm just going to kind of save your time and just do this. All right, so the data type is going to be JSON. Okay, so it's kind of, we are passing JSON to it. Okay, URL is the home controller, and then the method is get mobile phones by brand ID, which is already here in the home controller. Get right, and then we're going to be passing brand ID back to this method, and then the data is brand ID. We are passing the selected value of the first drop down list in here. Okay, the next thing now is when it's successful. Okay, so on success, what happens? So success, oh sorry, success, on success, all right, we want to write a function, just a function to handle the success, right? Success value, and then this is going to be the response that will be coming back. In this response, this is where we are going to populate the value that will be coming back, right? And if that is not correct, we also have another one that is called error. So if there's something not correct, we have error, which also takes in a function of response as well, just to like the response, what went wrong. Okay, and then you can just do, maybe just throw an alert to say, oh, something went wrong, something like that, you know, just something like that. Okay, all right, but that's that. This is where inside the success, that's where we're going to kind of now dynamically create the drop down list and populate the drop down list inside here. But first of all, what I like to do is to check the data that is coming back, just to make sure that, you know, we're on a good track. It's coming back correctly, right? If not, we don't know if it's coming back correctly. I just like to check this. So I do a console.log response.data. I just want to see if it is truly coming back or not. Okay. So I'm just gonna run this. I'm just see if there's something wrong. We'll know right now. If nothing is wrong, we'll know as well. Hold on, let me make sure that the oh no. I'm gonna hit F12. On code error, I think we have an error right here. We're missing a syntax. Argument list syntax. So we have an error. I need to fix that error just to make sure that we have that fixed. So you see this error. Let's go ahead and fix this error. Alright, so I fixed the error, and then you could see when I select this, let's say I select Samsung, you can see that we are logging in. The console.log is logging in this, and you can see that it is actually returning Samsung phones only. When I select, let's say we select Techno, you could see that it logs another one, and that second one is returning Techno phone. So our Ajax call to the controller is actually working, and let's go and continue. All right, So the Ajax call is working, so we're able to log the data that is coming back from the response. The next thing we're going to do now is to write the markup for the drop down list. I remember I told you that we're going to do this dynamically. So the first thing is to write a markup. Right now I think we're good to remove the console.log because I just wanted to see that it was actually logging before we go further. Okay, so this is like the markup. The first thing we're doing is to create HTML tags for the options and setting the value is equal to 0, and I said select phone. It's like you're going to select the phone options, right? And then that's that. The second thing we're going to do, we have to loop through this data that is here, loop through the data, and then pass in the data information to the options value. So it's just like, you know, you're doing a for loop or for each loop. Just loop through it. So you're just basically, I'm just looping through the data, this data right here, data dot response dot data dot length, and I'm just looping through. Now inside here, I want to create the I want to kind of append the markup values for each of them, and append the phone text and the phone ID. So basically phone name and the phone ID, and I'm going to append it to this markup right here, right? So basically now what I'm doing is this plus equal to means whatever you do on this right hand side is just going to be appended to whatever is on the left hand side. So we already created a markup here, so we're doing option value. So the next line, this is more like the next thing in the drop down list, is the first one is select option, select default value, which is select phone. The second thing in the drop down list is going to be the iPhone ID, and for value, and then for text is going to be the phone name. So in between the options is going to be the phone name right there. And the next thing to do is basically to just append. It's basically to add this markup into the HTML, inner HTML, or the HTML of the drop down list, which is just simple as that. Just simple as that. Remember to do this outside of the for loop though. If you do it inside the for loop, you're not going to get the same results. Remember to do this outside the for loop. So in the drop down list, this drop down list that is here, the second drop down list, the ID of this drop down list, when I append every value that is coming in, so response, so the value response of data ID. Now this is what is going to be displaying here, right? Okay, this is what's going to be displaying here, displaying out. Once I finish appending it here, I'm just going to use the value of the drop down, the ID of the drop down list .html, and then inside the HTML I'm going to pass in the markup. So this markup is going to be the HTML that will be inside of this guy. So what's going to happen is it's going to build the option list for the select item, for this select element. It's going to build the option list, and it's going to add it inside of the HTML, and that's it. One last thing before we finish. Remember we had to hide the second drop down list, because when the page load first time we have to hide it. Now after the value is correctly populated here without no errors, we have to show it, and all we just got to do is just show that div. That's all, and that's it. And then we should be able to test our the whole thing. So we're just doing the div, because remember it's the div that we're hiding, is this entire div that we're hiding, this entire div. So now we want to show the div again after everything is populated, so that we could see it right now. Alright, so that being said, let's go back to, let's run the code and test it one final time. Everything should work as we have demonstrated earlier on. Everything should work. Let's see. Okay, so you see the first one that is here is the first drop down list, and it said select phone brand. So I'm going to select Samsung. The second drop down list appears. Note carefully that there's no refresh on display on the screen, and then it doesn't refresh. You can see that it's Samsung Galaxy phones that are showing here. Let's do iPhones. We should see iPhone phones, iPhone X, iPhone Pro, iPhone 11 Pro, and all of that is showing. Same thing goes to all of them. I'm gonna just that was Samsung. Let's do Techno is the one showing. Techno, Spark, Camon 17 Prime, and all of that showing here. Let's do Motorola, the last one. So we have like Motorola showing here. So this is how you can actually build a drop down list where the first drop down list is populating the second drop down list. When you select the value of the first drop down list, it populates the value of the second drop down list using Ajax jQuery. And also you could hide the second drop down list only when the values are populated for the second drop down list. Then you should the second drop down list. This is how you can implement that. It's just a simple way, and this is very common with most applications, so it's important that I kind of show you guys or teach you guys how to do this. Please subscribe to my channel. It is very important to encourage me to go ahead and release more content like this. Like the video and subscribe to this channel. And up next is going to be I want to show you how to dynamically use Ajax jQuery to bring in partial view to a page. So let's say you click on a link, and then when you click on a button, then show a partial view. Okay, you just don't display the partial view. Only when you click on a button or you do an event, then we show the partial view on the same page. That can be achieved using jQuery Ajax as well. So I'm going to show you that next. So thank you very much for watching this video. This is where I'm going to end the video, and thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video.